So the idea of unconscious incompetence, unconscious incompetence, which is that state of not wanting to know. We're an enemy to ourselves, and we don't want to see our own thoughtlessness, our own unkindness to ourselves. We don't want to see into the dynamic, the curious dynamic of how we throw away our greatest treasure, the treasure and presence of ourself. We don't want to see. So into this system of not wanting to know comes God's teacher. God's teacher speaks on your behalf and says, there's no way around becoming aware and conscious of what you're up to. The way to the promised land, the way, the truth, and the life is initially takes the shape and form of becoming more aware, more conscious, aware of what I'm developing, making in my system right now. And we call that, or that state is often referred to as conscious incompetence. Conscious incompetence is a state where you're miscreating, misthinking, lost in error, sin in error, pining, complaining, so to speak. But now you're aware of it. Now you're starting, now you can't shake it, the aware of it, the awareness of it. And the awareness of it is very often, students perceive that as being, I'm getting worse. It's getting worse, not better. I don't know if this is a good idea, this system, whatever the system is that you're using. It's not going to matter what system you use. You're going to have to go through that state of sorting yourself out where you become aware of your own misthought, your own error proneness, because that's the only way you can act decisively and consciously in favor and in respect and in honor of yourself, which transfers nicely and powerfully and beautifully to how you are with all the other parts of you, that seem to occur in the form of others. There's only one self here. I'm speaking on behalf of that self, from that self, to that self. I'm talking to you, the you that is God's beloved. I don't have to like you to know that I love you. Most of you I like most of the time, but that's irrelevant too. Well, something is at work here because I'm laughing and I'm already in an experience of having a good time. So I hope you are as well in this thing we're doing here, whatever it is. I want to acknowledge and underscore, emphasize right off the bat that you're greatly appreciated. It's a thrill and a delight and a privilege to have your friendship, to experience and share friendship with you, mindful, miraculous association, and at the same time you're not obligated. If you decided you've heard enough of this, whatever it is, confusion that Jeffrey seems to delight in, that's totally fine. I had you before you showed up the first time. I knew you and had that relationship with you before I became conscious of it. And therein lies God's gift, the treasure of that unalterable nature of the singularity or the oneness of creation, God's gift, in which there can never be anything wrong. So there's no obligation. There's no obligation for you to be spiritual. There's no obligation for you to be a good Course in Miracles person, teacher, student. There's no obligation for you in any way, shape, or form. It's all opportunity. That's all it is. And when you show up, ready to go, ready to rock, it's felt, it's appreciated, it's helpful. It's palpably helpful to Jeffrey. The truth in you, the truth that we share, doesn't need help. That's where all the help is coming from. Is coming in the original authenticity of what you are, who you've always been, and what you could never be without or lose. We're simply learning how to recognize it, remember it. By the way, if you're multitasking now, I will ask you not to do that. So those of you on the call, if you're looking at text messages, or emails or any of that stuff, please don't do that for my sake. Not, you may be perfectly capable of doing all that, but I think it'll help me energetically if we all just sort of hang on every word and meet there and don't budge to the best of our ability. Really stay in it for this 90 minutes or so that we're together. So we go through unconscious incompetence. Then the stage seems to move into becoming conscious of our incompetence. Then we move into conscious competence. Conscious competence is when you're awake, you're no longer looking away, you're no longer pretending to sleep, as Bishop Desmond Tutu says. You're not pretending, you're simply here and awake, you're present. And you've managed your mind and are managing your mind in your due diligence and in your practice, so that more often than not, you can be counted on to do the right thing, whatever that is. And if the truth be told, you always know. There was never a time when you didn't know what your best option was. Your only option, in truth. So then there's that stage where things do seem to be improving and becoming more stable and consistent, and that we describe as conscious competence. And then mastery is that state of unconscious competence, where you no longer have to think about it. You often refer to that, Kevin, in when you really know a piece, you know it, and you know everything.
No interference.
No interference. Whether your hands are cooperating, your hands just cease to become an issue. And
well, what's interesting, what you're talking about, is do I need the mic?
Sure.
Is when you're conscious and competent, and yet you're still in a stage where your world and the effects are still the same. And to be able to be disciplined about staying on the path, knowing that if I stay on this, I know that things will improve, quote unquote, That's difficult because it's very easy to go back to, well, maybe I should do something else, or just slip back to falling into sleep again,
Yeah, because if the truth be told, we don't really know. We think that if I just keep this practice of being consciously competent, things will improve. But they won't. They will not within the context of your illusory experience, because it is what it is. An illusion is inherently an uncomfortable state.
Right.
It's poison ivy, folks. And no matter how much calamine, hold on one second, Franklin, no matter how much calamine lotion you pour on it, you're not going to like that either. It just cakes up, and cat hair and dog hair gets stuck in it, and it itches like crazy, except now you're coated and covered up with a bunch of weird shit called calamine lotion. But you really have nothing to lose by going forward with that idea, because you've sufficiently learned that you don't have an answer. There isn't anything you think within your system of separate thinking that's going to make any difference whatsoever. That's kind of the beginning of trust and faith and that state where you begin to move into finding and seeing for yourself.
Right.
That's when you begin to reconnect with that sense of something's going on here that is radically and extremely and wonderfully different than my apparent perpetual state of anxiety and agony and loss that I seemed to be experiencing all the time. Mm-hmm. So, that's that leap of faith, that quantum leap, that's that state where, if you know one thing, it's God is your only hope. Obi-Wan Kenobi is your only hope. And mastery is where you practice, I have nothing to lose, in asking for help. And and by the way, that's the best I'm ever going to be able to do within my separate self personality experience. The best I'm ever going to be able to do is ask for help. And, by the way, most of the time not know if I ever was answered.
There was something I read today which just came up, and I just briefly glanced on it. It was on Twitter, and someone wrote, it's not a matter of you winning or losing, it's a matter of the discipline. If you always practice discipline, then the winning and losing isn't the point. The point is the discipline. You're trying to be disciplined. And they're of course using it in worldly, sports metaphors and that sort of thing. So they're thinking really winning and losing, whereas there is no losing in reality.
In reality, yeah.
But I like the idea of, focusing on the discipline, on the courage, and regardless of the outcome. You know what I mean?
Because it's some kind of step towards something different.
Yeah, right.
And ultimately, discipline transforms into consistency.
Right, yeah.
Devotion. Mm-hmm. Where I'm not doing it because I'm hoping things are going to get better and improve. I'm doing it because I can't deny that something is happening.
Right.
That's beyond my, more often than not, perception or interpretation of what's happening. I feel that there's something going on here. So, and that state has no limit to it, because inherently there's no limit to how good you can feel, how deeply you can fall in love with yourself. Roberto Benigni, the Italian film actor and film director, says, innamoratevi. Se non vi innamorate, è tutto morto. He says, fall in love. His direction to people, his message to people is fall in love. You need love. Fall in love. If you don't fall in love, everything is dead. You're not going to like it. You need love. You need God. You need perfect love. You need truth. You need light. You need the thing you can't ever think of separately. All the while, you are that. That's the nature of your being. So you go through the state of learning how to let go, surrender to that state of falling in love, to recover your own presence, to recover conscious awareness of your own presence. That was always here and always offering you supreme help. Franklin.
Yeah, before I make a comment, there's a little bit of a feedback, so if anybody has an open microphone on a smartphone, could you just mute your microphone?
Thank you. Thanks, Franklin.
Yeah, we hear it on the line, but you don't hear it there. I just want to say that this is a learning experience, has been a learning experience for me, where I've had a couple of things happen over the past couple of weeks where it feels like there's an expansion and then a contraction, and then a greater expansion and then a little bit of a contraction. It's almost like learning to walk, where you take a step and then you fall, and you take it in. God, I'm trying to find the words for this.
You're doing great.
Where I've moved into a place of feeling absolute love and knowing what to do, but then all of a sudden fear will take over, and then I'll start acting from the ego. And sometimes you don't even know that until you've gone through that and you've experienced the expansion, and sometimes you don't even know what you had until you get pulled back into the contraction, and then you realize, oh my God, that was the ego. I was acting from my ego. So I'll go into one little thing that happened this week. I have a family member whom I had been sharing some of the things about Course of Miracles with, and there was a lot of resonance, and I hadn't gotten too much into the principles, but there was some general discussion about it, and then this past week I decided to really open up and to share some of my personal experiences of revelation, and it just was a little bit too much for them because they're a very religious person. It was a little bit too much for them, and it pushed them back into their fear and their ego. And then I saw myself kind of coming from an ego point too, but yet at the same time I knew what was truth for me. So the bottom line is, for me, it's been an expansion and feeling this warmth and love, and then kind of watching my ego take over. Sometimes it feels like we have to watch ourselves go through this to learn it. We have to watch ourselves connect to the higher truth, and then kind of get lost and feel like our ego is taking over, and kind of, I don't want to say go with it, because it's always a choice, but sometimes it feels like the ego part is a little bit stronger. So would you say that that's necessarily true, that sometimes we have to watch ourselves fall so that we can learn to walk?
Only if it is. In other words, it's only true to the extent that seems to be your experience. Remember, we're making it up, and whatever we make up, that becomes the vehicle that Spirit uses for your truthful education, right? So remember, you need do nothing is the foundation for truth and reality and God's gift. It's, in this system of the need to, the apparent or the illusion of learning, the need to learn, in this system of the illusion of the need for miracles, they appear for a temporary period because they seem to be necessary, that's all. Ultimately, all that stuff goes away. And here's why. Of the two, one being reality, the other being illusion, only one is true. So, for that period of time or that interval where I seem to need to learn something or to teach something, then for that period of time, that's the way it worked for me. Because because Holy Spirit is supremely able in an unfailing way to use whatever I choose or make up as my vehicle to truth, for deliverance, for whatever it is I think I need. Whatever I choose, he's going to make that work because he's empowered to do so. There's nothing he can't accomplish.
And therein lies the perfection of everything.
Including your perfection and whatever that seems to entail and involve in your process, which, by the way, was, never an issue.
Children also, just using the metaphor of walking, children don't see falling down as a problem. It's the way way they learn to walk.
Unless they do.
Well, if they do, they're going to probably have problems walking.
I can't quite remember what my experience was like then, but I can certainly remember and have a fair amount of consciousness about what it's like for me now as I have these apparent lapses of thoughtfulness.
But there's a trust always that the child, it just trusts that this is going to happen. I mean, it's just inherent that it's going to happen.
Yeah, but the child may not even be conscious of that.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Is it's just the.
So that's that quality
the pure mind is just figuring it out by itself.
That's the purity and the innocence of every living thing God creates and created. It's as active and as present and as influential in you as it ever was. It's only this apparent development of an altered consciousness, of an aberrant consciousness, that seems to suggest that, whoops, something different happened.
Right.
We have a problem here. There never was a problem. The process said, you or I, or we seem to engage in the recovering of that fundamental truth is whatever it seems to be.
I mean, that intelligence that figures out how to do these things at a young age, we are still it, and yet we don't rely on it. I had an experience the other day where I got my laundry back, and they had put the cord in the laundry in such a way that I couldn't get it out. So it was stuck in in the laundry bag, and I was struggling with it, and finally I just said, you know what? I'm just going to figure this out without thinking about it. I'm just going to see if I can just figure it out and not think about what to do and just let my hands figure it out. Just like we would do with, any other thing we're trying to, like cleaning up a room or anything where it's sort of mindless, but it seems to get done.
Yes.
So I was like, all right. So I'm looking up on YouTube how to do this, no videos. But I just sat there, and after about 10 minutes, it came out. I can't tell you the process, how it happened.
It probably escaped.
But afterward, I thought to myself, well, that's so cool to just decide that I'm going to use that instead of a pair of scissors. And what I usually would always do, I'll just cut the bag. I'll order a new bag. This is what I would usually do.
I'll get pissed off.
I'll get pissed off. I won't use that. But to call on that is so
it's trust.
It's so nice, It's
absolutely.
just and then 10 minutes goes by so much easier.
Yeah,
and it just happens, and
all your time.
I'm just trying to remember that it's always there. It's conscious competence is still being worked on. So
all of your whatever it is, your learning experience will all become consistently easier the more you learn to trust and rely on this thing beyond your own making, which has to do with a unified intelligence beyond my own separate thinking. We're going to read about that in a second in one of the beautiful special messages that Jesus gave to Helen and Bill if you guys have that, those of you who have who have the special messages or the ear text, that's where we're going to be reading from. All roads lead to God. There isn't any, you can run but you can't hide. There isn't anything you can do that's really going to screw it up. And anything you do is going to be used on your behalf, right? Because perfect love renders all things perfect. And that also includes what you consider to be your crimes. Your errors, your mistakes. So, and the more and the, what's that?
I said praise the Lord.
Yeah, praise, absolutely praise the Lord. For thousands of years, teachers have been saying, you have good reason to praise the Lord. Hi, Bridget. You have good reason to praise the Lord. It's in your best interest to do so. And, teachers have been recommending that option as a way out of your own separate, conflicted methodology, which doesn't work so well, or doesn't work at all. So you're dealing with an intervention. God is the Spirit of God's perfect love is intervening on your behalf in a form you might find acceptable. This is what the course is. It happens, this system, this course happens to be a form of the universal curriculum that you happen to find acceptable. So it'll work. Anyway, let's, if we can do so, let's do a little reading. You don't have to read along if you don't have that system, or if you don't have the ear text or the special messages. So it says special message October 5th, 1975. And again, this is part of the ACIM, the dictated course that this group of people that originally published it thought they would remove from the published version. And I completely get it.
1975 is after the main text is finished, right? Isn't it? Or is that
probably? But I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would think, but it could have had. I think so.
Yeah, right.
Because I think within the chronological time sequence, the course actually came earlier.
Right. Yeah, I thought so.
73, 72,
right.
Something like that. Anyway, Helen and Bill had human experience much like you, and he had to speak to that. He had to lead them beyond that. He had to show them that he had to comfort them. He had to fulfill his function as a comforter. That's what love does. It comforts. It doesn't scare. It comforts. And he starts with that idea. He says, be comforted. Be comforted. Relax. You're not asked to do anything. Right? This is how this special message begins to Helen and Bill. Be comforted. You are not asked to do anything. He says there is a time when to step back is all that is asked of you. There is a time when to step back is all that is asked of you. It is a time of rest and not of strain. This time of stepping back, it is a time of rest and not of strain, not of efforting. a time of peace and not a time of historic conflict. That time is almost here. Now I would amend this and say that time is always here. Most certainly it's here now, because it's the nature of here now. It's unconditional. Holy instant is unconditional. He says to Helen and Bill, which might have just worked a little better in that moment, he says that time is almost here. He says it seems fearful. It seems fearful because it is not under your control. So you have a problem with your false self, your separate self thinking, if wants to control everything, wants to latch on, control, use everything. And you have a problem with anything that you can't control. And the whole idea of this system is beyond your ability to control. That's why it works. If you could control it, it wouldn't work. It seems fearful to you because it is not under your control. But think a minute. He says, stop and think honestly about what your control has done, what it has brought to you. You know, the whole idea of unconscious incompetence is your control, your system of control, trying to control everything. It doesn't work. And then he speaks a little deeper into that. He says, you have been caught in a trap, I would say, of your own making. You have been caught in a trap from which you never could escape. Conflict, guilt, and fear have come with you and never left your side, the side of you think to be yourself. Each one of you has done this differently, in some peculiar, unique, inventive, innovative fashion. Each one of you has done this differently, yet each has come to the same place, the same impasse. And now it seems to each of you that there is no escape, no hope. Nothing works, not even this. For it is true that you cannot escape alone. Your stories seem to differ, for they do take different forms. Yet their one content makes you brothers. Everybody's story is made up of the same thing, bullshit. Your story is just your story. Thank God, praise God, love God, as you discover and as we discover together that your story is not true.
That's great, though.
Yet their one content makes you brothers, right? You know, we've all been dabbling in the speculative misart of bullshit and bullshitting ourselves and each other as a lifestyle, as a preference, you know? Work in the room, work at my room, my shtick. He says, dwell not upon the differences that seem to distinguish you. Dwell not upon the differences, or you are lost. You're looking, you know, in the direction that, you know, is just gonna mislead you. Dwell not upon the differences, or you are lost. It is in the recognizing the common content, right? The common need, that you are safe, that you are saved. You know, in the initial phase of waking up, realizing that I'm a suffering addict. I look out, all I see is my own error reflected in everything and in everyone. I'm united with my brothers in suffering, in misunderstanding, in misperceiving, in mischief making, in being troubled. I've become an expert in making trouble, depriving myself of peace. I'm an enemy to myself, and rarely am I even aware of it. And then he says, the mess that is your lives is an illusion. The mess that is your lives is an illusion. What can the form of dreams resolve? What have you ever worked out in a dream? There is no answer to a question not yet asked, for it would not be recognized. Ask only this. In all things, he says, ask only this. Will I fulfill the function given me? Because you can be sure Helen and Bill were thinking, how are we ever going to accomplish this? This is a heavy load, which of course it could never have been, but that's how they had to frame it in their error proneness regarding believing themselves to be egos, with hardship and a hierarchy of difficulty. The mess that is, he says to this, the mess that is your lives is an illusion. What can the form of dreams resolve? There is no answer to a question not yet asked, for it would not be recognized. Ask only this. Will I fulfill the function given me? What else is there to ask? Why must I know the form in which the answer comes to me? God answers yes. Right? To that question, that one and only meaningful question, will I fulfill the function given me? God answers yes. And it is done. No more than this is meaningful to you. You don't have to go anywhere else. It's the only thing you need to know. And his answer will always be consistent. It'll always be personal. It'll always be given you in the deepest, most tender, kindest, gentle, and acceptable of ways. It is not he who would withhold the future and leave you fearful. You could not accept his yes, which is fundamentally true. Within your egotistical, conditional thinking, you have no tolerance for an actual yes, for approval, for love. You're going to reject it. Into this impossible place comes God's teacher, right? Or as Jesus says, I am come into a world, into a mind, into a thought system that must reject me. You already did in your denial and rejection of yourself. You already did. You already tried to throw yourself away. So it is not God who would withhold the future and leave you fearful. You could not accept his yes to a question. You could not accept his yes in forms you would not understand because you can't control them. What you can't control, you won't tolerate. You don't love, you're terrified of what you can't control. Things still in time unfold as is appointed them, right? There's no coincidence. Everything is happening for a reason and purpose, and by the way, not of your own making. Things still in time unfold as is appointed them, and many things remain undone as yet, apparently. Plans based upon intangibles cannot be fully shown to you. It's when, you know, you could see is Helen and Bill are freaking out how and why and how are we ever going to and how do I, you know. All they needed to ask was, will I get it? Will I do what needs to be done? In which God will always answer. Very simple answer. The answer is always yes. God doesn't have no in him. This phase of learning, he's saying to them, this phase of learning has a single lesson. For all the forms your problems seem to take. Now, this is as true now as it was then, right? Because, you know, you're dealing with an answer that's not coming out of time and space. It's coming from beyond that dimensionality. It's the universal response. It's timeless, you know. It's as good now as it ever was or seemed to be. This phase of learning is a single lesson for all the forms your problems seem to take. And here it is, to God all things are possible. But you must ask his answer only of himself. Ask him. Perhaps you think you do. Perhaps you think you do or you think you did. But be you sure that if you did, you would be quiet now and wholly undismayed by anything. Do not attempt to guess his will for you. Do not assume that you are right because an answer seems to come from him. Be sure you ask, and then be still, and let him speak. There is no problem he cannot resolve, I would say, and has already done so. For it is never he who keeps apart some questions to be solved by someone else. You cannot share the world with him and make half of it his, God, while half belongs to you. Truth makes no compromise. To keep apart a little is to keep all separate. Your life, complete and whole, belongs to God, or none of it is his. And that's what terrifies you. There is no thought in all the world that seems more terrible than your life, complete and whole, belongs to God. Right? There isn't anything that's more deeply intolerable, extremely, severely intolerable to the ego other than your total dependency on God and your willing admission of it, admitting it. Your life, complete and whole, belongs to God, or none of it is his. There is no thought in all the world that seems more terrible. Yet it is only when this thought appears in perfect clarity that there is hope in peace and safety for the mind so long kept dark and twisted to avoid the light. This is the light. Step back and do not dwell upon the forms that seem to keep you bound. You will fulfill your function and will have whatever you will need. Stay awake, stay present. And you will have whatever you will need. God does not fail, but lay no limits on what you would give to him to be resolved. For he cannot offer 1,000 answers when but one is all there is. Except this one of him, and not one question will remain to be asked. And that answer is as it described in this transmission, was yes. It's not an issue. The outcome is sure. Do not forget, if you attempt to solve a problem, you have judged it for yourself. And so you have betrayed your proper role, right? Your function is not to judge, it's to let go. If you attempt to solve a problem, you have judged it for yourself, and so you have betrayed your proper role. Grandeur, which comes from God, establishes that judgment is impossible for you. What would you judge with, and against what? But grandiosity, the root of all judgment, insists, demands that you judge and bring to this all problems that you have. And what is the result? What is the result? Look carefully upon your life and let it speak for you. Pardon me?
There's a lot, yeah. There's a lot of static on the line, and there's a lot of distortion.
Really?
And low volume.
I have, the volume is all the way up on my device. And
it has something to do with the system. It's not you, Jeffrey.
okay, thank you.
Maybe we need to get a new speaker.
I don't know if it would be, if it
Maybe we
was
should get
distorting.
one. Maybe we should get one and just see if it helps, and if it does, keep it, and if not, we'll bring it back.
I have to go online and take a look and see where the technology is, and if there's really been any changes in true advances, or whether it's just repackaging of the same thing, So,
It's clearing up now. It's clearing up. It cleared up a little
Maybe,
bit.
maybe you're sometimes holding it down and you're not aware of it.
yes.
That's God's answer.
I don't know. I can't solve it. I don't have a solution for it. Even if I buy a new speaker, there'll be something else.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, Jeffrey, it's cleared up. It's about 90% clear now. So I think just acknowledging it is what needs to be done.
Okay, cool.
We just need to move through it as a group.
Great. So the last statement he made to Helen and Bill was, look carefully upon your life and let it speak for you. He says, is this frail breath and deep uncertainty, is this frail breath and deep uncertainty your choice for you? Or would you rather rest in surety, certain you would not fail in your request to have all problems happily resolved, all problems? Do not mistake the fine disguises you can use to cover concealed judgment. It appears as charity, as mercy, and as love, as pity, as understanding, and as care. And yet you know it is not what it seems, because the problem still remains unsolved and comes to haunt your mind in evil dreams. What have you kept from God that you would hide behind your judgment? What have you concealed beneath the cloak of kindness and concern? Use no one for your needs. Use no one for your needs, for that is quote unquote sin, error. And you will pay the penalty in guilt, in the experience of guilt. Remember, you need nothing. You need no one. You need nothing. But you have an endless store of loving gifts to give. Remember, the way to have is to give, not to get. not to get my questions answered. You need nothing. Remember, you need nothing, but you have an endless store of loving gifts to give. But teach this lesson only to yourself. I'm the only one that needs to get it. Your brother will not learn it from your words or from the judgments you have laid on him, the conditions, the misinterpretations, your own errors. You need not even ask a word to him. You need not even ask a word to him. You cannot ask, what shall I say to him? And hear God's answer. Rather ask instead, help me to see this brother through the eyes of truth and not of judgment. And the help of God and all his angels will respond. For only here we can... Yes?
Jerry, I just want to add that was the awareness that I had in this most recent experience with a family member, is that what I was seeing was the projection of my own ego, and that it was, in a way, it was valuable because it came back to me to remind me that my only function is not to do that, but to see the unity and the peace in my brother and focus on that instead.
Yeah. You know, again, you're dealing with a perfect teacher. Perfect teacher is going to utilize anything you conjure up for the good of all. Doesn't matter whether you like it, don't like it, agree with it, find it acceptable or unacceptable. Whatever you come up with, it'll only be used for your own good. But teach this lesson only to yourself. Your brother will not learn it from your words or from the judgments you have laid on him. You need not even speak a word to him. You cannot ask, what shall I say to him? Dear God, what shall I say to him? Her. And hear God's answer. Rather ask, instead, help me. Help me. God, help me to see this one through the eyes of truth and not of judgment. Let me see this differently, truly differently. And all the help of God and all his angels will respond. For only here we rest. We cast away our little judgments and our petty words, our tiny problems and our false concerns. We have attempted to be master of our destiny and thought that peace lay there. Freedom and judgment is impossible. But by your side is one who knows the way. Step back for him. Step back for him and let him lead you to the rest and silence of the Word of God. It's different. It's just very different. Always different than the way I think it to be.
I heard something, I was listening to a blog about ACIM holy relationship stuff, and it was talking about forgiveness and how the person was sort of saying, like, well, these people in my family hurt me, and you know, all of those things. And I always found that was the hardest one to kind of explain, is like when somebody, you know, especially a child or something's hurt or whatever. And she said she went into a meditation and she heard Christ say, and the person she was talking about, his name was Lee. And then she heard, there is no Lee. you're doing this to yourself,
Yeah.
like in the dream.
It's about you.
Like no matter what is happening to us, it is our illusion of dream. And like yes, we live in the world and all of that, but there I don't know, something in that like unlocked something for me today.
Yeah, great.
Like, and I was thinking about people that I still have resentment towards, and I was like, there is no Lee.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there is no them.
Yeah, yeah, and even like I have different scenarios in my life right now that are like worrisome or whatever, and I'm like, wow, these are things I've created to attack myself, even though like they seem real and I have to still be responsible and handle them. It's just very interesting to see how I use so many things to distract myself from the truth.
Yeah.
And even just a little while ago, I started to fall asleep when you're
Yeah.
talking about the truth.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
but if I'm on Instagram, I'm not asleep. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I'm all ears.
For the-
I'm all ears for the part of the conversation that deals with the conflict and the dream and how we're gonna fix it, and whatever that story is. I mean, we're unfortunately attracted to it and prone to being swept away by it. And when the truth presents itself, we go away. We can't. Oh no, anything but that. And anyone but that one who seems to speak on behalf of truth. It's I once, many years ago, went to see this wonderful teacher, enlightened mind, Kenneth Mills, who taught out of Toronto. Also a wonderful pianist, concert pianist, and composer. He was a beautiful man. And I went to I went to a group where they played a tape of one of his, what he called his unfoldments. And I found myself curiously, just nodding out, the whole time, just rejecting. I thought that was interesting. What's going on here? I'm this enlightened guy. I know all this stuff. And man, I was turn-tailing and running for cover. And going to sleep, Going to sleep. There's a part of me that was never this. We're not going to stand for this. We cannot stand for this. Don't you know your life is at stake? So, yeah, it's whatever that separate self personality context is. It's a weird bunch of stuff.
yeah.
It's peculiar assemblages of weirdness, personal weirdness, to be met with a sense of humor and kindness and respect and a greater appreciation for what it is and who it is that you really and truly are, as a means to decode it and take that leap of faith or that step with Christ as your guide beyond it, because you always stand beyond it, just never separately. You will never have an experience of being beyond that tragic pain and conflict when you think alone. Your only way is to think collectively, to think codependently, truly codependently. Jesus said over and over again, many of his lectures and discourses, I am totally dependent upon my Father in heaven, my Father who is heaven. Whatever this is, it's a result of depending on him. And learning to trust in that and listen to that. And it's a mystery. It's an unanswerable mystery to, Helen was doing this through her whole process of being a channel for the Course, and at the same time, apparently, being swept away by her ego and always on the verge of throwing it all away, thinking it was really gibberish. and meaningless. You know,
Well-
apparently being unreasonable. Yeah, Bridget.
I was just gonna say, like, it's so funny because we so don't want to hear the truth that like we'll attack the truth. Like I remember you saying this to me like that, like at some point I might turn on you. You know what I mean? In the sense of like, and then I think I mentioned last time I'm helping a friend. I'm not even telling her it's Course in Miracles stuff, but I'm telling her basically she's innocent and that she doesn't have to feel guilty. And lo and behold, last night she kind of attacked me, like verbally, and I just laughed. I didn't even take it personally. I expected it almost. Like,
Yeah, when you're in your right mind, it'll provoke laughter and a deeper understanding and tolerance. What difference does it make whether she loves me or doesn't love me,
Yeah.
likes me or doesn't like me?
Or just to watch that, like to tell someone they're innocent, for them to fight so vehemently that they're not.
Yeah,
that they're
and
you know,
to not
guilty.
make that wrong.
Yeah, right.
To realize, yep, I get it.
Yeah, I sure do. I do still do.
I get that. I know what that feels like. I'm well versed in that humdinger. You know. Alexa, open the living room shade.
Okay, here's Preston home automation. Opening the shade in the living room.
Alexa, open up the kitchen shade.
Okay, here's Preston home automation. Sorry, I was unable to process your request. Please try your command again later.
Later.
Alexa, open the kitchen shade.
Okay, here's Preston home automation. Opening the shade in the kitchen.
Yes.
You know,
You have to
you
have
know, this is an exercise in patience regarding this technology. It's like everything in the world, you know. None of it really works.
It's a perfect example of being gentle yet firm.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if now's not a convenient time, I have no problem with later. Knowing full well and with all the certainty of Almighty God that later is now. And I don't have to make grandstand about that or make an argument about it. You know, I can simply let it be knowing they're one and the same. Later's as good as now. It's all the same thing, you know.
She doesn't know what later is either.
No, yeah, you know.
Right?
You know, she's learning, like, you know, like the consciousness I think myself to be. So we're all, you know, apparently within the realm of perception, having the same experience, all the while safe in God. All the while having an eternal, unconditional, unlimited experience in which we have no needs. All our needs are met and gone beyond. And this you know and can develop your awareness of it, your knowledge of it, your celebration of it, your gratitude for it, unlimitedly. Because that's the nature of what you are and who you are, and whether you're aware of it or not, you already did. You already went along with it. You know, you are as God created you. You know, all this stuff that seems to come in the experience of awakening or enlightenment or healing, it already happened. You're just getting a bird's eye personal insider's view of what it looked like in how it was reflected in your illusory dream, where it seemed like something had to happen. You know, you're beholding the way it went down, how it worked, how you fulfilled your function, how you were delivered. That's what it all is. That's the only thing going on, which is why you can afford to relax and be of good cheer.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about, he had this traumatic experience happen to him about a year ago, and he blacked out and he became ultra violent, and like he just flipped out from a like deep anxiety from his childhood. And he said to me, he said, it's so frightening. My whole identity changed. And I said, yeah, so does everyone's though, right? Like, you know, we all grow up thinking we're kids and we have certain ideas about things, and over time our identities keep changing. And I said, but you know, wouldn't the nice thing be to just drop it completely? Wouldn't that be nice? And he said, oh, that sounds so incredibly scary. I said, yeah, it is for everybody, right? But
well, for as long as it appears to be fearful, i.e. undesirable, then that'll be what my experience is. But that in no way implies that it was ever fearful or difficult or,
right. Yeah.
You know, so
Sure.
It's like, whatever you say, God says yes. Whatever.
It's the thing, the power of the mind. We were talking about the power of the mind
Yeah.
and how everything changed. I was like, well, actually, nothing really changed, right? I mean,
Exactly.
But your ideas changed quite a bit about who you are, and
Yes.
now I have to be medicated, and now I have this problem. I'm crazy, and other people aren't crazy. I'm like, but that's all. Is that all real? I mean, is that
Well,
real?
none of that is real.
Yeah, no, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying. I was like, is
yeah.
that real, or is that just us coming up with more and more stories to defend what we keep thinking about and what we keep feeling?
Yeah. All the while, none of that was ever true or ever an issue or a concern. There was never a problem. It all worked out, saith the Lord.
Yeah, that's the quantum leap that we're all trying to take, at least when we're studying this. This quantum leap is just to go like over that fence instead of trying to find a way around it.
And of course, the way over the fence is following God's appointed teacher, God's guide who knows there are no fences.
there are no fences. You walk
Yeah.
right through it because it's an illusion.
And by the way, you were always there.
Right.
You were always beyond the concern and the worry. It was never an issue.
One of the videos I put online, I forget what the title of the video, but there was this great photo of a door that was wide open in the middle of a field. And it just reminded me of exactly that idea of like, you're already free.
Yeah.
So, all right, you want to open the door? Fine. But you're in the middle of this vast field opening a door.
Yeah, which
You
is
know, trying to
fine
get
if
through
you
this
insist.
door. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
if you want to deal with that.
If you want to still have doors and open and close them, okay. But, you know, I have complete faith that you'll get over that. And already did. You know, that whatever this is, it all was resolved the moment or the instant it seemed to become manifest and require an answer. Yeah.
I want to say thank you to you because I when I first started doing the course and coming to these meetings and whatnot and working with you, I was just always like in the drama of the story of like, it's so horrible, Jeffrey. And you always stood for it's all okay. Is even no matter how dramatic I would protest, it is what is happening. You kept like always had like you always stood for it's all that I'm okay. And I find that I do that for other people now.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. I mean, like I said, my friend the other night, she was literally having a breakdown, and it was so dramatic over nothing.
Yeah.
And I just stood there for the truth that she was okay, you know, and there was just like such a calm for me. I used to just panic when people would have a breakdown or, you know, or when I would have
Yeah.
a breakdown.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I can't deny it anymore. Like, even though sometimes I still do, there's something in me that knows everything is fine, even when it's all seems nice.
Yeah. And the more you share, the more you bring forth or elect to share that deeper knowing, the more palpable, the more you feel it, the more available it is to you. Because you're electing to set aside what interferes with that or distracts you from it. Because you're finally coming to recognize that the peace of God is all I want. And you know what? And that process of sharing content that's miraculous in nature, and therefore knows no order of difficulty. Love will always respond to any kind of perceived lack or breakdown or problem. You know, I love you will always get the job done. It'll always bring some measure of tolerable, acceptable comfort, movement into your shared experience, giving you and the apparent other whatever it is that you need. You know, such is the nature of the miracle, which provides, you know, that expression of God's vision and his ability to provide, to answer it, for as long as an answer seems to be required. So, any questions? What do we got? It's 8:25. We're wonderful. You know, we're right there. Feels very clear and connected, and you know, very grounded. And but any remaining questions? Yep.
Yeah, I guess you know, I've been feeling really good lately.
Uh-oh. That's got to be a problem.
Yeah, and like my mind starts to go, well, you know, be careful that the foot's going to drop, or you know that thing in the course that says, sometimes your greatest moves forward are your greatest moves back. So then my mind's like, oh, I must be moving back, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wait a minute, I can't even feel good about feeling good.
Exactly. So I just wanted to say that out loud and expose that. Like,
Yeah,
just really
such
don't
is
want
the
to-
nature of the illusory mind.
Yeah.
It can't but use anything and everything but to make trouble. You know, to emphasize the idea that trouble must accompany me everywhere I go. That, you know, surely goodness and mercy wouldn't apply to me.
I mean, it can't survive without some kind of problem, right? I mean, it's based on the idea that I have a problem that needs solving.
Yes. And whatever my culpability or complicity has been in the matter of listening to it, making it of interest. And, you know, because, you know, as I know now, it never was very interesting. And there was never a moment when I listened to it where I ever really had a sense of it, that it was worth listening to.
It's true.
Yeah. So, anybody out there on the call that has anything they want to share or ask?
Steve here.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to love everyone and thank everyone. It was such a powerful selection, Jeff, and of a reading. And in particular, want to underscore what really impacted me from your introduction, which is, you know, right in line with the reading, which is my job is to ask. The end. Keep asking. Keep being in. Show me, God. Show what. Who is this brother in front of me? What, you know? Stay in the request for guidance. And I love this part that you added, Jeff, which was, even when I don't think I'm getting the answer, I don't seem to be hearing it as clear as a bell, and, you know, the skies are parted. Never mind that. My job is to continue asking.
And listening.
You know, and listening.
Yeah.
And in the passage, and knowing, am I going to get through this? Is everything going to be okay? God's answer is yes. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it always, you know, being in that state of unlimited, unconditional expectation, you know, we could describe it as saying expecting the unexpected and being all ears for it, as a means to always be ahead of your own learning curve, beyond your own learning curve. Because the answer is always coming from your spirit, your Holy Spirit. Right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, we began the evening with the idea that I'm talking to you, from you, on behalf of all. You know, so, you know, it's so beautiful to know and realize that the word component of it isn't necessary. The words, the speaking and the word part of it isn't really necessary. But for as long as it seems to, it can contribute. We can use words to greater advantage in achieving and sharing states completely beyond our own limited thinking, you know. We can always be in that state of discovering the unfathomable, you know, of getting it. You know, Werner used to describe that, Werner Erhard used to describe that as getting it, you know, being in that state of all ears, receiving, receiving, getting it. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, you know, I'm on that lesson where it says, I lose the world of all my thoughts.
Oh, great.
Read into Oh my God, it's so powerful. It's really a way. It's sort of like you don't really exist at all here. Yeah. Yet all the while is here is where you've always been. But not in the here you think you know. Yeah.
What you are is beyond the capacity of your thinking about what you are and who you are. Remember, you're a thought occurring in the mind of God. Now, conceptually, that doesn't mean much. But in reality, it means everything. You know, it delivers you from that.
That we made all of this, and that we are so beyond this in the mind of God.
Which is the only aspect you need focus on. You know, all I need to know is what God's thought is for me. And being alert and attuned to that and desiring of that. And that's gonna produce a non-linear something or other that I can live with.
I am as God created me.
I am as God created me, yeah. And is thinking of me right now. And that's true intimacy. That's keeping it up close and personal. Because fundamentally you have this enlivening, perfect relationship with Source. And you can lean into that all the way, and the more you elect to do, the more apparent, the more exciting, the more inspiring you will discover yourself to be. Works out quite nicely. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, all roads lead to God. All roads lead to Rome. So, arrivederci. Buonanotte. La pace di Dio.
Grazie, fratello. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Ciao.
Good night, Steve. Ciao. Ciao, Franklin, Joseph, Ivy.